Pro 14 final is on this weekend. It is Leinster against Ulster. It's kind of come out of nowhere, but I guess just with them having to wrap the season up, it's just, I don't know, it just feels weird to have the final so soon after the resumption of play, but that's just the way things are. And yeah, Leinster are still on that unbeaten run, looking to go through the season undefeated and go back to back in terms of Pro 14 titles. Ulster, on the other hand, I don't think have made a final for a few years. I think I did read up in the history they played Leinster in the 2012-13 season where they finished runners-up in that one. So, yeah, plenty of them to play for. I'll go through the lineups in a tick. There's a few changes for both sides. Interesting, some of the guys who have been picked on the bench. Some pretty big names on both sides, actually. And we'll talk about who the favourites are to get the job done. But like I said, Leinster, they are the favourites because they are just an unstoppable machine at the moment. That being said, their semi-final win was kind of an attritional grinding down of an opposition, whereas Ulster's game was a bit of a second half of just kind of magic and a bit of a not a one-man comeback, but a team comeback that was, focused on one man picking up a lot of points in Ian Madigan. But yeah, that game certainly had it in terms of the pure entertainment value, whereas Leinster and their game never really looked like losing. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping as a neutral that this one's got a bit of magic about it. But if Leinster grind Ulster into the ground, that wouldn't be kind of a surprise to anyone because they are just a team that is very, very hard to beat. Leinster's lineup is Healy, Kelleher, and Porter in the front row, so no changes there. Devin Toner keeps his spot in the second row, but interestingly, he's joined by James Ryan this week. Haven't seen him since the resumption of play. At least I haven't seen him. I'm pretty sure he's been injured the whole time. But that's fantastic news for both Leinster and Ireland fans to see that guy back. I would have thought maybe start him on the bench, give him ease him back into it, but nope, straight back into the lineup for a final. Doris, Josh van der Fleer, and Coden are the back row, so van der Fleer comes in after being on the bench last week, which means Connors drops to the bench. Likewise, Vardy in place of James Ryan. Back sits Jameson, Gibson, Bark, and did I say Bark? Park and Ross Byrne, 9 and 10. Likewise, those two guys were riding the pine last week, so that means Sexton's on the bench and Luke McGrath's on the bench. Interesting selections. I mean, Leinster is that kind of team that you can swap out. Literally, they did this to Ulster the last time they played. You can swap out pretty much the whole team and still have a team which is either competitive or better than most teams. They beat Ulster 28-10 a couple of weeks ago after changing pretty much the entire team. It's just what they can do with that depth, man. So yeah, Gibson, Park, and Byrne are certainly no slouches, but it's just a bit eye-raising in a final to have McGrath and Sexton on the bench. There's Champions Cup coming up, so maybe that's what they've got in mind with this one. But I mean, I guess it's nice for Gibson, Park, and Byrne to get that chance, a bit of extra pressure to see how they perform. Henshaw and Ringrose are the midfield, and Ringrose is captain. That's a new one for me. I think I read that it's his first time captaining the side. Again, that's a bit of a trial by fire. James Ryan back from injury, straight into a final. Gary Ringrose, first time as captain in a final. Sexton on the bench for a final. It's just a bunch of bold calls by Leo Cullen, but we'll see. James Lowe, Keenan are the wings, and Lama is still there at fullback. Like I mentioned, Vardy, Connors, Sexton, and McGrath all moved to the bench. O'Loughlin's there, Ed Byrne, Tracy, Bent, so it's still a pretty bloody good looking Leinster lineup. Ryan Baird is the one who drops out of the squad with James Ryan being back in. For Ulster, you got O'Sullivan, Herring, and O'Toole in the front row, so no changes there. O'Connor is maintaining his spot in the second row, but Ian Henderson is back. So both sides have brought back one of their star players, and it just happens to be a second rower, and it just happens to be their first game back, and it just happens to be a final. So, man, Henderson and James Ryan, again, good news for Ireland to have these guys back and hopefully fit and ready to go. Back row, Matthew Ray, Sean Reedy starts, and Marcel Coetzee is still there at number 8, which means Sam Carter drops to the bench with Ian Henderson being back, and likewise Geordie Murphy. So yeah, it's a bit of a changed lineup. Another big call, kind of I guess the equivalent one of the Sexton call, is Albe Matthewson starts ahead of John Cooney. I think that might be a form thing, man. Honestly, like before lockdown, Cooney was the star 9 of basically the whole Champions Cup from what I was watching. But then since resumption, I don't think he's quite been there. He's still not quite hit that level. So Albe Matthewson, I thought, made a pretty good difference in that second half in the semi-final last week. So maybe he's earned a start, 5-cap All Black and former Blues legend. So yeah, good to see him get a go. Billy Burns is there at 10. McCloskey and Hume resume in the midfield. Stockdale shifts to the wing for this one, the left wing. So it means Rob Little moves to the right wing. Lowry comes in at fullback. And yeah, Madigan's on the bench despite his heroics last week. They've only got 2 backs on the bench with Cooney and Madigan. That's it. That's the entire backs cover for Ulster. I guess they're expecting a pretty fierce Leinster pack to come at them. So they've boosted things with an extra forward on the bench. We'll see if that pays off. It's always a bit of a gamble, but it certainly worked for the Springboks at the World Cup. 6-2 split. Kieran Treadwell drops out of the 23 for Ulster. Still no Dan Levy. I was talking to one of the guys on Patreon about him maybe coming back in, but not to be. I guess, I know he's not far away from last I read. The sooner we can get him back in action, the better. But yeah, Leinster, man. It's going to be a tough one for Ulster, but let's hope it's a cracking game. In terms of the predictions, the bookies here in New Zealand have got Leinster by 11 points, so pretty comfortable favourites. And Rugby Forecast's online algorithm has Leinster by a whopping 16 points. Honestly, as a neutral, I'm hoping it's a hell of a lot closer than that. 16 points wouldn't make for the best viewing in terms of having that kind of grandstand finish as a final. But we'll have to wait and see. Remember, Leinster have an extra day's rest on Ulster, having played a day earlier last week. But I think it is still a full week for Ulster to get that rest. So yeah, should be a good one. It's on Sunday morning here in New Zealand. I think like 6:30. It's 7:30 in the evening, I believe, over in Ireland. I don't know if they're showing this one free on Facebook in Ireland. They did that with the Leinster-Munster game. I think Ira Sports put it on their Facebook page if you were in Ireland. So check who your broadcasters are. If you don't have a broadcaster, then I'll put a link in the description for ExpressVPN because you can use ESPN Plus for like $6 American to watch the game. And they've got all the Pro 14 next season coming as well. Any Super Rugby coming. So that one's, just another option to watch games live or on demand. I should say the last time these teams played in that final, it was 24-18 to Leinster. Sexton was starting. Madigan was at 12 for Leinster. He switched sides. Toner was still playing. Leo Cullen was playing. Cian Healy was playing. All those guys were in the starting lineup. For Ulster, I think Rob Herring and Ian Henderson were both on the bench for that one. So yeah, there's still a few guys who have played in the Pro 14. Well, that time it was Pro 12 final before. But yeah, I'll be doing a stream tomorrow in the morning if you want to watch along with me. Obviously, I don't show the game footage, but I'll be watching the game. As I said, hoping it's a cracking one. If I'm getting up at like 6 o'clock in the morning to watch it, not that early for me, seeing as my kids are usually up around that time. But yeah, let's hope it is a cracking game. It's maybe the closest equivalent we've got to an Irish version of that North-South game that we had here in New Zealand, because there's a ton of Irish internationals going at it in a final. So it's not quite the same, but it's next best thing. Yeah. Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. Who are you tipping for this one? If anyone knows if it's being broadcast on the Facebook page, let us know, because then you can just set your VPN to Ireland instead of signing up for ESPN Plus. But yeah, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.